Buzz, ping, scroll, swipe. Noise, endless noise, voices telling you who to be, what to chase, what to fear, what to believe. But here's the question no one is asking. What if God has been speaking to you this whole time, and you just couldn't hear him? Because in a world that never stops talking, hearing God has become one of the hardest things to do. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you might finally understand how to hear God again. Elijah had just experienced one of the greatest miracles of his life. Fire fell from heaven. An entire nation witnessed the power of God, but right after that victory, everything changed. He ran for his life. Fear replaced faith. Exhaustion replaced confidence. And eventually he found himself alone on a mountain. Desperate, burned out, confused. Have you ever been there? 1 Kings 19:11-12, the Lord said, "Go out and stand on the mountain." Then a great and powerful wind tore the mountains apart, but the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. After the earthquake came a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire came a gentle whisper. God wasn't in the noise. He was in the whisper. Let that sink in. The same God who sends fire from heaven chose to speak in a whisper. Why? Because whispers require closeness. You don't hear a whisper from a distance. You hear it when you lean in. When was the last time your life got quiet enough to hear a whisper? Be honest, drop it in the comments. Today we live in constant noise. Notifications, music, videos, opinions. Even when it's quiet, we fill it with something. But what if your constant need for noise is drowning out the voice of God? What if God is speaking, but you're just too distracted to notice? Jesus visited a home. 2 sisters were there, Martha and Mary. One was busy, the other was still. Luke 10:39-40. She had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet listening, but Martha was distracted by all the preparations. Martha wasn't doing anything wrong. She was serving, working, taking responsibility, but she was distracted. And Mary, she chose presence over productivity. Luke 10:41-42. Martha, Martha, you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better. Did you catch that? Distracted. Not evil, not sinful, just distracted. What distracts you the most right now? Work, social media, stress? Drop it in the comments. We glorify busyness. We measure worth by productivity. We fill every second. But in doing so, we often miss God. You can be doing good things and still miss the presence of God. You can be busy and spiritually empty. What if the reason you feel distant from God is not because He left, but because you've been too distracted to sit with Him? Samuel was just a child when God called his name. 1 Samuel 3:4. Then the Lord called Samuel. He heard the voice, but he didn't recognize it, so he ran to Eli. Here I am, you called me. But Eli said, I didn't call you. This happened 3 times. Samuel was hearing God, but he didn't know it yet. 1 Samuel 3:7. Now Samuel did not yet know the Lord. The word of the Lord had not yet been revealed to him. Finally, Eli told him, when you hear the voice again, say, Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening. And that changed everything. Have you ever wondered if God was speaking to you, but you weren't sure? Tell me your experience in the comments. Sometimes the issue isn't that God isn't speaking. It's that we don't recognize His voice, because His voice doesn't always sound like we expect. It might come as a quiet conviction, a deep sense of peace, a persistent thought that won't go away. But if you're always surrounded by noise, you may never learn to recognize Him. What if God has been calling your name and you've been mistaking it for something else? Jesus was constantly surrounded by noise. Crowds, demands, needs. People wanted healing, answers, miracles. But what did He do? He withdrew. Luke 5:16. But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. He stepped away to reconnect. If Jesus needed silence, what makes us think we do? Do you intentionally create quiet time in your life, or does noise just take over? Be real in the comments. We don't withdraw, we scroll. We don't pause, we distract. But spiritual clarity requires intentional quiet. What if the breakthrough you're praying for is waiting on the other side of silence? Job lost everything, his wealth, his children, his health, and in the middle of his pain, God was silent. Job 30:20, I cry out to you, God, but you do not answer. Have you ever felt like that? Like you're praying but hearing nothing back? But here's what we often miss. God's silence does not mean his absence. Job 38:1, then the Lord spoke to Job out of the storm. God was there the whole time, working, watching, sustaining. Sometimes God allows silence to deepen your faith. Have you ever gone through a season where God felt silent? Share your story below. You're not alone. Silence is uncomfortable, so we fill it. But maybe silence is where trust is built. What if God's silence is an invitation to trust him more deeply? So how do you find God in a noisy world? You slow down, you create space. You choose stillness over distraction. You listen even when it's quiet. You trust even when it's silent. Because God is not lost. He's not distant. He's not ignoring you. He's speaking in the whisper. He's present in the stillness. He's waiting for you to lean in. What noise do you need to remove from your life? What would happen if you gave God just 10 minutes of true silence? If this message spoke to you, don't scroll past it. Pause, reflect. Share this with someone who feels overwhelmed by life. And right now, in this moment, take a deep breath and just be still. Drop a comment. Tell me what stood out to you, and don't stop here. Because the next message in this series might be exactly what your soul needs next. Watch next, Finding God in an increasingly noisy modern world.